the War Doctor, a version of the Doctor that we didn't necessarily see on screen for quite a while, portrayed by Sir John Hurt. Now, I think the reason for this particular version of the Doctor Who exists, as far as I can tell, is that as the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who approached, they had a kind of loose idea in mind for the story, but they wanted to show a Doctor who had fought during the Time War, i.e., the point between the 1996 TV movie and the 2005 revival. However, while Paul McGann was willing to return for a regeneration story, he didn't seem like he wanted to do a full episode of And the Doctor Who Fought in the Time War, and the Ninth Doctor actor also turned down the chance to return. So Stephen Moffat needed to come up with a version of the Doctor Who fought in the Time War, and that then came in the form of the War Doctor. Now, in the Series 7 finale, The Name of the Doctor, of course, Clara Oswald jumps into the Doctor's timeline in order to stop the Great Intelligence from screwing up the Doctor's timeline, and in doing so, she sees every single past version of the Doctor there has been, until the Doctor is eventually able to retrieve her from a small pocket of time at the end. However, as they're in this small pocket of time, they see a dark figure, and Clara says that in the timeline, she saw every single version of the Doctor, but she never saw that one. He claims, "It's me. There's only me here. Let's get back." But I never saw that one. I saw all of you, 11 faces, all of them you. You're the 11th Doctor. I said he was me. I never said he was the Doctor. My name, my real name. That is not the point. The name I chose is the Doctor. The name you choose is it's like a promise you make. He's the one who broke the promise. And of course, this version of the Doctor is portrayed by actor John Hurt. Now, he only officially appeared in two Doctor Who episodes. Those, both of them being in 2013. One being the Series 7 finale, The Name of the Doctor, where we get to see our first look at him and reveal that he is a version of the Doctor, and then The Day of the Doctor for the 50th anniversary. Now, he did appear up 2 times afterwards. He appeared briefly in the kind of flashback sequence in 2014's episode Listen, and then also stock footage of him was used in the 2020 episode The Timeless Children. Now, there were small hints towards this version of the Doctor before this time, before we even knew there was going to be a War Doctor who fought in the Time War. I mean, in the last episode of Series 2, Doomsday, David Tennant's Doctor remarks, I was there at the fall of Arcadia. When someday I may even come to terms with that. And it's also mentioned in the last episode of the 10th Doctor of he still possesses the moment, and he'll use it to destroy Daleks and Time Lords alike. Now, as I mentioned in my 8th Doctor video, this version of the Doctor came about when the 8th Doctor crash landed on the planet Khan and eventually took a potion to trigger his regeneration into a warrior. He felt there was no more need for a Doctor, so he needed a warrior to fight in the Time War. Now, we don't know exactly how long John Hurt's Doctor was the Doctor for. We can assume it was for rather a long time, as in The Night of the Doctor, we see in the reflection is a younger version of John Hurt, whereas in The Day of the Doctor, he is significantly older. But considering the Time War went on for God knows how many hundreds of years, we can assume he was in there a long time. And of course, he eventually steals a Time Lord weapon known as the Moment, which, as they say in The End of Time, can destroy both Daleks and Time Lords alike. Now, in The Day of the Doctor, we ultimately get to see how this plays out. That he steals the Moment, a device, essentially a very big bomb, that he can use to destroy, of course, everything. However, it turns out the Moment is sentient and tries to talk him out of using the weapon at all. And it ultimately manifests itself in the form of future companion Rose Tyler, or more specifically, her Bad Wolf alter ego. Now, supposedly in the original timeline, the War Doctor did actually end up detonating this weapon, but the Moment explained to him that I have no desire to survive this, and then that's your punishment. You will live on with the knowledge of what you have done. And so that's what ultimately led to it. Now, we can assume that in the original timeline where he detonated the moment, everything was destroyed and he was eventually injured and regenerated into Doctor Number 9. Now, technically, as the War Doctor, he does count towards the number of regenerations. He is technically the Ninth Doctor, but to avoid confusing people, it's just easier to refer to the next one as number 9, as that's the one we saw next, and refer to this one as the War Doctor. He does count towards the numbers, as the 11th Doctor reveals in his final episode, The Time of the Doctor, that, are we forgetting Captain Grumpy? Eh? I didn't call myself the Doctor during the Time War, but it was still a regeneration. But it is also worth noting that in the renewed timeline, the War Doctor works together with both his 10th and 11th incarnations, as well as every other version of the Doctor, to save Gallifrey. Now, his ultimate regeneration in this version of the timeline, although he can't remember what he's done and still believes he's destroyed Gallifrey, seems to just be old age, as after leaving the Doctors and Clara alone at the British Museum, he simply retreats into his TARDIS, takes off, and then starts to regenerate. It's like, yes, of course, suppose it makes sense. Wearing a bit thin. Now, the costume we see for this War Doctor appears to be a brown leather jacket with a waistcoat and a brownish red scarf. So, easy enough to replicate. Now, sadly, the actor who played him, Sir John Hurt, did eventually pass away on the 25th of January 2017 after quite a lengthy battle with cancer. And I know that some people would choose to honour John Hurt with a different role, such as rewatching Alien, the Harry Potter series, Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, or even Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings. But I think when I heard he had died, I immediately went back and rewatched The Day of the Doctor. And honestly, I'm quite glad I did. I mean, this was one of the greatest actors of our generation. So it felt wise to me. So the War Doctor, as I said, is technically the 9th, but we refer to him as the War Doctor just so we can keep the numbering. But honestly, with the Timeless Children reveal, it's become more tricky. But anyway, next one up, the 9th Doctor, and I mean the one we refer to as the 9th. When I get there, I'll let you know. And until then, see ya.